to Budget MTG Decks. All magic fun, all cards under $1. I'm David, and this is the Rebellious Ilona.
Hi!
Now today we're going to look at fun and balanced duel decks. Now these duel decks are all 60 cards, 2 colors, and meant to be a perfect match against any of the other decks within this series.
Best of all cards used are under $1. So each deck costs an average of $11.
That's right. Let's have a look at the guild we have today. We have the Golgari Swarm, and it is black and green.
The guild mechanic is called Scavenge. Exile the creature from your graveyard and put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to its power on another creature.
Yeah, you have to remember that you can only scavenge as a sorcery, so you can only do it in either your first or your second main phase, and not as an instant. Now the deck playstyle is to fill up your graveyard and to grow your living creatures to titanic proportions using your dead. So your graveyard is basically another hand. It's a lot of fun. Let's have a look at the creatures.
Our guild champion is Rusulka, the Scar Striped. For 3 mana you get a 2/2. Each creature card in your graveyard has Scavenge. The Scavenge cost is equal to its mana cost. Sacrifice another creature, regenerate this guy.
Yeah, so this card is super good. You might think, okay, it's just a 2/2, but it comes in super early for 3 mana. On top of that, now not only your creatures with Scavenge have Scavenge, but also all your other creatures. So you're going to be able to make this guy massive if you want to, or somebody else. On top of that, if you do put all the Scavenge counters or the +1/+1 counters on Varolz, and somebody decides to target it because they want to destroy it, it doesn't matter, because as long as you've got a little 1/1 Sapperling token or some guy that you don't really need anymore, you can sacrifice it and regenerate this guy. So he stays on the battlefield for a long, long time.
The next card is also Deep Shadow. For 1 mana you get a 1/1. Tap to add a black mana to your mana pool.
Yeah, on top of that, if you do that, it does deal 1 point of damage to you, but that's okay because to be able to get a black mana, it's going to accelerate you. The guy comes in on turn 1, preferably. Super nice to be able to mana ramp you, and of course, with the black, it fixes you. Pretty sweet.
The next card is Odious Troll. For 1 mana, you get a 1/1. For 2 mana, regenerate Odious Troll.
Yeah, this guy does massive work when it comes to blocking. You just leave those 2 mana open and it's going to be able to block anything as long as it doesn't have flying or some other kind of form of evasion. It's going to be blocking massive things. That's good work, Odious Troll.
The next card is Slitter Head. For 1 mana, you get a 1/1. Scavenge 0.
Yeah. Great card also to block with. On top of that, as soon as it goes into the graveyard, if it's in one of your 2 main phases, you can just scavenge it for no cost and put a +1/+1 counter on any of your other creatures. So yeah, actually it's a card that you don't really mind if it dies at all.
The next card is played Rusulka. For 1 mana you get a 1/1. For a black mana, sacrifice a creature. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn.
Yeah, if you've got creatures that you don't mind that they die, such as for example the Slitter Head, then it's really nice to pay a mana and sacrifice it, and then you can maybe kill a creature on your opponent's side if it's got a -1/-1. Cool thing is that you've got multiple creatures, such as maybe 1/1 Sapperling tokens, and you've got some extra black mana left over. You can just tap all of that and then give a creature multiple instances of -1/-1 and kill much bigger stuff. Pretty sweet.
Next card is called Deadly Recluse. For 2 mana you get a 1/2. It has Reach and Death Touch.
Yeah, talk about a huge card. Just for 2 mana, it has Reach, it has Death Touch. It can stop 1 power creatures without dying itself. People can't attack it into you anymore once you got Deadly Recluse. It is an awesome little spider that kills huge flyers.
The next card is Putrid Leech. For 2 mana, you get a 2/2. Pay 2 life. Putrid Leech get +2/+2 until end of turn. Activate this ability only each turn.
Yeah, you can only do it once each turn, but for 2 mana, 2/2, super good. It's kind of what you're used to, but being able to, as a surprise, make it a 4/4, you're going to be able to attack every turn with this guy. Nobody wants to block a creature that could potentially become 4/4, and since it costs 2 life, sure, that's maybe not nice if you're low on life, but at the beginning of the game, you can just tap out of your mana and still be able to pump this guy, and people don't know where it's going to come from, so it's really sweet.
The next card is Garasda Guild Mage. For 2 mana you get a 2/2. For 3 mana, target a creature gets +1/+1 and gains Intimidate until ends of turn. And for 4 mana, sacrifice a non-token creature. Put X 1/1 green sapling creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the sacrificed creature's toughness.
Yeah, that second ability you're not going to be using that often, because if you have a creature that's really big, you don't really want to sacrifice just to have a lot of really small guys. You could use it, of course, as a response to somebody killing your big guy. And you can say, no, you can't kill it, because first I'm going to pay for it, I'm going to sacrifice it, and I get all these little guys. Sure, that's a good option. What you're going to be using a lot is the first ability. For 3 mana, making another creature +1/+1. And if your opponent doesn't have artifact creatures or black or green creatures, you're going to be able to always get through with a guy who's even popped a little bit bigger. So it's really, really sweet.
The next card is called Reassembling Skeleton. For 2 mana, you get a 1/1. For 2 mana, return Reassembling Skeleton from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped.
Yeah, super handy. You don't have to do this as a response. It's not like Regenerate or anything. You just pop this guy on the table, you let it die, and then later on when you have the mana, you bring it back from the graveyard to the battlefield. Sure, it can't block that turn. Doesn't matter. You can do it at the end of your opponent's turn. It's a blocker that's going to be massive, massive work. On top of that, if you need something that you want to sacrifice a creature, such as with the Plague Rusulka, then Reassembling Skeleton is your man or woman or whatever it used to be.
The next card is Slitter Troll. For 2 mana, you get a 2/1. It has Trample. Discard a creature card. Put a +1/+1 counter on Slitter Troll.
On top of it, it also has, for 1 black mana, you can regenerate Slitter Troll. This card, you love to see it at the beginning of the game. It does massive, massive work. You think, oh, it's just a 2/1 with Trample. You can regenerate it. Not too interesting. But if you have it at the beginning of the game, just keep those creature cards in your hand. As soon as this guy comes on the table, just throw all your creatures into your graveyard. This guy gets pumped to epic proportions, and it's going to get through because it's got Trample, and people are going to maybe block it with things that are have Death Touch, or they're going to try and chump block it, but it doesn't matter because it has Regenerate. So you can regenerate it every single turn, and people have a real big difficulty getting rid of a Slitter Troll that has a lot of +1/+1 counters on it. Pretty nice.
The next card is Rancrawl Troll. For 3 mana, you get a 2/2. It has Wither, Persist.
Yeah, so it has both instances. The Wither makes sure that it does damage in the form of -1/-1 counters. Very nice against, just something that's really big. You bring it back down to a more manageable size, or creatures with Regenerate or with Indestructible. Very, very nice. On top of that, it has Persist. So that means once it dies, it's going to come back as a 1/1. One time, but still pretty nice.
The next card is called Stonefarer Crocodile. For 3 mana, you get a 3/2. For 3 mana, you get a Stonefarer Crocodile, gains lifelink until the end of turn.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty solid card. For 3 mana, it's got 3 power. You're going to be able to attack pretty decently with it. On top of that, it might be able to get you out of some sticky situations by giving it lifelink a couple of times, and then you can gain back a lot of life that you lost trying to set up your board position. It's not a bad guy to put a lot of +1/+1 counters from your Scavenge on either.
The next card is Trestle Troll. For 3 mana, you get a 1/4. It has a Defender, Reach, and for 3 mana, you can regenerate Trestle Troll.
Yeah, this card you might think, okay, he's got Defender, so you can't really attack with it. It does have Reach, and it's got a pretty big butt with that 4 toughness, so pretty decent. And on top of that, for 3 mana, you can regenerate it. So actually, it's going to be stopping a lot of flyers, and pretty much actually anything else that's massive that's going to be coming your way. So yeah, pretty decent. Nothing to write home about, but early game could get you out of some sticky situations.
The next card is called Rage Mangler. For 3 mana, you get a 3/3. It has Haste, and it has Scavenge for 5 mana.
Yeah, 3/3 for 3 is really decent, and the fact that it has Haste that's going to come in and start attacking right away, this card is going to do a lot of damage to your opponent very early on in the game. Scavenge 5 is a little bit expensive for those 3 +1/+1 counters, but later on, maybe if you're mana flooded, you don't have anything else to do and it's in the graveyard, it's not too bad.
Next card is Nyx Weaver. For 3 mana, you get a 2/3. It has Reach. At the beginning of your upkeep, put the top 2 cards of your library onto your graveyard. For 3 mana, exile Nyx Weaver. Return target card from your graveyard to your hand.
Yeah, this card is also a really good card to stop flyers, as this deck doesn't really have any flyers itself, so it's good to have some breachers to stop those flyers. This is a good card for that. Mostly you don't really want to risk this guy, because every turn during your upkeep, you're going to be putting the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard, and you want that because you want to fill up your graveyard with as many cards as possible to give you some extra versatility and some scavenge options, etc. Top of that, if something does go into the graveyard, which is really, really nice, you can say, hey, goodbye, little spider. We're going to miss you, but I'd rather have that other card. You can exile this guy for that card. Really, really nice card to have.
Next card is Putrify. For 3 mana, you get a XX. Trample, Splinterfry's power and toughness are each equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. At the beginning of your upkeep, put the top 2 cards of your library onto your graveyard.
Yeah, so it's basically the same as the Nyx Weaver. It puts the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. Super nice. But this guy has the added benefit that he also becomes super massive as there are loads of creatures in your graveyard. So yeah, the longer this guy's on the battlefield, the bigger he's going to be. It's not unusual for it to become a 10-10, and it also has Trample by itself. Throw on a couple of scavenged cards on top of him, and yeah, it's going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Next card is Sluiceway Scorpion. For 3 mana, you get a 2/2. It has Death Touch and Scavenge for 4 mana.
Well, actually, it's the other way around. It's got Sluiceway Scorpion. It has is for 4 mana and it's Scavenge for 3. But it has Death Touch, which means that it doesn't even matter how much its power and toughness would be. This guy can attack and block really decently. And should it die, the Scavenge of 3 is not too bad to get 2+1/+1 counters on it. So your opponent really doesn't want to see a Death Toucher on the other side.
The next card is Thrashing Mossdog. For 4 mana, you get a 3/3. It has Reach. And it has Scavenge for 6 mana.
Yeah, that Scavenge for 6, that is absolutely ridiculous. Nobody should ever be paying that kind of mana for 3+1/+1 counters. But it's a 3/3 with Reach, so it's going to stop those early flyers. Not too shabby.
The next card is Deathbridge Goliath. For 4 mana, you get a 5/5. It has Scavenge for 6 mana.
Yeah, that's a little bit more reasonable. Mostly just because for 4 mana you get a 5/5. That's a power and toughness almost unheard of. It is huge. This Goliath is truly titanic, and you really love having this card. And should somebody remove it later on in the game, you do have that 6 pumping somebody. Of course, sorcery speed, but pumping somebody up with 5+1/+1 counters is going to make a big difference. So it's lovely.
Next card is a Corpsejack Menace. For 4 mana, you get a 4/4. If 1 or more +1/+1 counters would be placed on a creature you control, twice that many +1/+1 counters are placed on it instead.
Yeah, super powerful card. You're going to be scavenging, and if this guy's on the table, all those scavenges are going to be twice as many +1/+1 counters. So if you can already imagine scavenging the Deathbridge Goliath for 6 mana, you don't get 5+1/+1 counters. With Corpsejack's Menace, you're going to get 10+1/+1 counters. That's going to end the game in a fast way.
The next card is Farika Mender. For 5 mana, you get a 4/3. When Farika Mender enters the battlefield, you may return target creature or enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand.
Yeah, you're going to be putting a lot of cards from your library into your graveyard or from the battlefield. It's going to go into the graveyard. And Farika Mender, when it comes in, is going to be able to grab the juiciest thing, the best thing that went into your graveyard, whether it be creature or enchantment, back into your hand for another round. And on top of that, it's a 4/3, so it's actually not too bad in attacking and blocking.
The next card is Garasda Gorgon. For 5 mana, you get a 2/5. It has Death Touch, and for 2, you remove a +1/+1 counter from a creature you control. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn.
Yeah, not only just being a 2/5 Death Toucher is going to be blocking pretty much everything all the time, except for, of course, the creature with evasion, but also having the ability to have a creature that got pumped with +1/+1 counters, taking some of those off and then killing your opponent's creatures with that to make space is going to be really, really nice if you have the mana for it, and of course the +1/+1 counters on it, but with all the scavenge you probably should. Even if you don't, still a 2/5 with Death Touch is going to be doing a lot of work.
Next card is Gleam Crawler. For 6 mana, you get a 6/6. Has Trample. At the beginning of your end step, return your hand all creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn.
Yeah, this is my favorite card because not only is it a 6/6 for 6 with Trample, so it's going to be attacking with impunity. On top of that, you can actually attack with everybody else as well that turn, because any of your other creatures that die this turn, as long as they're not tokens, they're going to go back into your hand, you can just cast them again. So, if people don't get rid of this Gleam Crawler, there is no way they're going to win.
Next card is Doomgate. For 7 mana, you get a 10/10. It has Trample. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature you gain Creature. You gain life equal to that creature's toughness.
Yeah, when you thought 6/6 with Trample was big, the Doomgate comes in and shows you what's what with a 10/10 Trampler. If you think, yeah, the Gleam Crawler is nice. One of my favorite cards because, you know, it allows you to bring other cards back. If you need to finish the game right there and then, Doomgate comes in, 10/10 Trampler, takes in half of your opponent's life if they're at 20. You do have to sacrifice a creature, but there's many ways that this deck you have creatures that come back from the graveyard, or you got little 1/1 Sapperlings, so it's not the end of the world. And of course, being able to gain life equal to its toughness is a nice little bonus. Mostly people just go crazy when they see a 10/10 Trampler on the other side of the battlefield. But yeah, it's really, really awesome. And those are the creatures, so now we can have a look at the enchantments. This deck has 3 enchantments.
The first card is called Fists of Ironwood, and it costs 2 mana. When Fists of Ironwood enters the battlefield, put 2 1/1 green Sapperling creature tokens onto the battlefield. Enchanted creature has Trample.
Yeah, so this card is really handy because as the Golgari, you're going to be wanting to grow your creatures to epic proportions with all the +1/+1 counters you get from your Scavenge. It's really nice to be able to give that creature Trample to make sure they get through and do loads and loads of damage. On top of that, having 2 1/1 Sapperling creatures is nice for either chump blocking, or you can use them to sacrifice them for particular effects. Very, very nice.
The second card is called Gift of Deity, and it costs 5 mana. As long as enchanted creature is black, it gets +1/+1 and has Death Touch. As long as enchanted creature is green, it gets +1/+1 and all creatures able to block it to do so.
Yeah, so this is a super nice enchantment because you just cast it on one of your multicolored creatures. The creature gets Death Touch, that's already super sweet. It's going to get +2/+2, and when it attacks, it's basically going to clear the board on your opponent's side. Your creature will probably not survive, but it doesn't matter because they will have nothing after you attack with a multicolored creature with Gift of the Deity.
The third card is called Golgari Germination, and it costs 3 mana. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, put a 1/1 green Sapperling creature token onto the battlefield.
Yeah, so this enchantment is super handy because as the Golgari, you don't mind that your creatures are dying and going into the graveyard. It's only extra nice that when your guys die, you're going to get a 1/1 guy to replace them. Super, super nice. It doesn't work for your tokens, but it doesn't matter. You're going to have a lot of creatures going into the graveyard, so it's super nice. Let's have a look at the artifacts. This deck has 3 artifacts.
The first card is called Golgari Stone and costs 3 mana. You can tap this card for a black or green mana.
Yeah, on top of that, you can also pay 2, tap it, sacrifice it, and then you can draw a card. Really nice for the beginning of the game because then you can mana fix yourself, mana ramp. Later on in the game, when you've got all your mana, you can just sacrifice it to draw maybe something more useful.
The next card is called Golgari Key Room, and it costs 3 mana. You can tap this card for a black or green mana.
Yeah, so the same as the Golgari Stone, except this guy has a special ability that you can pay 2 and it turns into a 2/2 Death Touching creature. Really nice for attacking because nobody really wants to block a 2/2 Death Toucher. It's also really good for blocking because nobody really wants to smash into a Death Toucher. Plus, it's an artifact, so it actually works against Intimidate creatures too.
The next card is called Gorgon's Head, and it costs 1 mana. Equipped creature has Death Touch. Equipped costs 2.
Yeah, so it's really very cheap way to give creatures Death Touch. You really want to be popping this on your Reachers so that their flyers can't get through. You also might want to pop it on your Sapperling tokens because if you lose a Sapperling, it doesn't really matter, and you can block something really, really big of theirs. It has a lot of possibilities, and it's always good to pop this guy on, well, pretty much any of your creatures. Those were the artifacts. Now let's have a look at the instants and sorceries.
The first card is called Golgari Charm, and it costs 2 mana. Choose one. All creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn, or destroy target enchantment, or regenerate each creature you control.
Yeah, this instant is super versatile and super handy because you can either do a little mini board wipe with the -1/-1 to all creatures. You can wipe a lot of creatures out, creatures that are 1 toughness that have regenerate or indestructible. Super handy. On top of that, if there's an enchantment that's really bugging you, you can get rid of it. And lastly, if you do an attack or you're blocking and you would lose a lot of creatures, you can just regenerate all of them with this instant. People never see it coming, so it's really handy.
The next card is called Down and Dirty. The down part costs 4 mana. Target player discards 2 cards. The dirty part costs 3 mana. Return target card from your graveyard to your hand.
Yeah, so if you pay both costs, you can do both at the same time. It's really handy. Mostly you're going to be wanting to get something really nice with the dirty part back out of the graveyard to your hand. But if your opponent has 2 cards in their hand and there's nothing really juicy in the graveyard and you don't have the mana to cast both, then the down part is really going to help you out, because making them discard those 2 cards is going to put you in a great advantage. Super versatile card.
The next card is called Grizzly Salvage and it costs 2 mana. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature or land card from among them into your hand. Put the rest into your graveyard.
Yeah, so when you're going to be wanting to have this card at the beginning of your game, it's going to help put a lot of stuff into your graveyard, maybe some scavenge things, really nice. On top of that, it allows you to search for that land if you want a mana fix, or lets you pick out that really juicy card right at the beginning of the game, creature, when you do this. So this card is really nice, especially at the beginning of the game.
The next card is called Drown in Filth and it costs 2 mana. Choose target creature. Put the top of 4 cards of your library onto the graveyard. Then play creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each land card in your graveyard.
Alright, so what you have to do is, before you see how many cards are going to go into your graveyard, you first have to pick a creature. So you're probably going to look at how many cards, lands are already in your graveyard, and you're going to try and get a creature that you're going to be able to kill guaranteed anyway. You don't really want to gamble too much with this. So you pick a creature, then you throw those cards, the top 4 cards of your library, into your graveyard. You're going to see how many lands are in there, and then that creature gets -X, however many lands that is. You're going to be able to kill something, once again, that has either regenerate or indestructible. Very decent removal card, and on top of that, it helps you get more cards into your graveyard, which you want.
The next card is called Putrify and it costs 3 mana. Destroy target artifact or creature. It can be regenerated.
Yeah, super nice. The fact that you can just kill an artifact, that's okay, but you can just kill any creature, no questions asked. If you want to regenerate it, no go. You can't regenerate. Super powerful for only 3 mana. Really nice.
The next card is called Hunt the Weak and it costs 4 mana. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then that creature fights target creature you don't control.
Yeah, also good removal. This deck likes to have a lot of +1/+1 counters on their creatures. This just helps to boost one of your guys. If you have a Death Touch guy, you can just eliminate any creature on your opponent's side. Doesn't matter if you have already a big guy with a lot of counters on him. This just makes him even bigger. You can remove pretty much anything your opponents have, because your creatures that have got scavenge counters on them are going to be massive. Hunt the Weak is going to be able to do good removal.
The next card is called Gaze of Gargan and it costs 4 mana. Regenerate target creature. At end of combat, destroy all creatures that blocked or were blocked by that creature this turn.
Yeah, also really sick removal. Not only will the creature that you're using to block not die, on top of that, it's kind of like Death Touch, because anybody who blocked it or was blocked by it dies, but it still works against a creature that has first strike, because it doesn't actually have to do the damage, just has to block. So it can be quite the blowout at instant speed.
The next card is called Death Frenzy and it costs 5 mana. All creatures get -1 or -2 until end of turn. Whenever a creature dies, this turn you gain 1 life.
Yeah, so it's also a little board wipe. It's -2/-2 instead of the -1/-1 of the Golgari Charm. It's a little bit more powerful. There's a lot of creatures in these decks with 2 toughness that's going to be able to destroy a lot of guys. On top of that, it allows you to get a lot of life back. And it doesn't even matter if you lose a lot of guys as well, because as we said before, the Golgari, they don't mind having a lot of creatures in their graveyard. So this card is going to get you life, and it's going to be able to set the board back to a state where you can come back and have an advantage. So it's really nice. Well, those were the instants and sorceries. Let's have a look at the lands.
We've divided the lands into 9 swamps, 9 forests, and 4 guild gates.
Yeah, fairly standard, just very even mana distribution. Should be able to get you all your colors you want. Not that complicated. Let's move on to the conclusion.
In conclusion, I would like to say this is a really fun deck because your guys, they grow really big, and you can use your graveyard as a resource.
That's right. Other decks also have a little bit of graveyard interaction, but this deck really uses your graveyard as another hand, being able to scavenge creatures, throwing cards into your graveyard and bringing them back from the dead. Plus it has some really obscenely massive creatures as well that are just big by themselves. Super fun. Plus the Death Touch is nothing to sniff at. On On top of that, it's also quite affordable, right?
Yeah, it's only $10.51. You can check the deck list below.
Yeah, now we're going to ask you guys to subscribe, because if you subscribe, it allows us to make more videos, lets us know that we're doing a good job, it makes us happy. On top of that, it's free, so just press that button right there and let us know that we're doing a good job. Well, I guess that's it. Thanks for watching. I'm David.
I'm Ilona.
This was Budget MTG Decks.